We get this question from parents all the time. How do I think up appropriate consequences when my child won't cooperate? I'm glad you're here because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to do with an uncooperative child. We're Paul and Vicki Jenkins, and we've been helping parents just like you with this question for a couple of decades. We'll even give you 3 phrases that you can memorize and use anytime you need them.
Let's start with a basic philosophy about control and maturity.
This is really where we start with parents because
the foundation.
Really what we're doing is trying to share control with our kids as parents. How much control they get to have depends on how mature they are.
Right. And it changes throughout their lifetime, and believe it or not, it actually changes day to day in many cases.
Or from one circumstance to another. So the quick overview of that model is stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. And we thought for a long time about what to name these, but that's easy to remember. Now, stage 1 is the least mature stage. At stage 1, there's no cooperation. There's usually a lot of noise, yelling and screaming, manipulation,
tantrums,
throwing the tantrums. And you can see this is typical of a 2-year-old, but it's about stage, not age.
Right.
Okay? So what if your 13-year-old is throwing the tantrums?
Right. The big thing is that there's no cooperation going on. It's very much, I need what I need and I am going to get it, and I'm not worried at all about how anyone else is dealing with things.
Tends to be quite demanding and manipulative.
And you know, it's very appropriate for a young, small child, a 3-month-old, a 6-month-old. They're not going to cooperate. They just know what they need and they cry for it, right? But it's a very different story as the child gets older. We expect them to show more maturity, and that's kind of where some of the battles between control and maturity come into play.
And Vicki, you mentioned cooperation. We don't get any cooperation at stage 1. So we're going to come right back to this stage because that's what we're talking about when children don't cooperate. But as a quick overview of the other 2 stages, stage 2 is when we stop fighting and start cooperating.
Right. And sometimes that cooperation can be really, really fun and outgoing, and sometimes it's a very grumpy cooperation. But if it is cooperation, we know we've moved from stage 1 into stage 2, and now you have a little bit more ability to share the control because cooperation is in play.
Right. At stage 2, we don't want any trouble.
Right.
We want to keep the peace, and so we'll go along or comply with reasonable requests. Now, you can see when your kids get to stage 2, we're not even having this conversation because you're like, oh yeah, my kids are cooperating with their consequences. Now, stage 3 is the most mature of these 3 stages. This is characterized by responsibility and morals and ethics and values.
And then the parent moves into more of a stage of consultant. And so there's a lot of consultation happening at this stage.
So keep it in your mind that this is about stage, not age. However old my child is, not as relevant as what stage they're on.
And I think usually the questions come when maybe a 10-year-old or a 13 or a 17-year-old is refusing to cooperate with what you have set up as the family rules or whatever, or the consequence that you've set for breaking a rule. So that's what we're talking about. Remember, it's all about stage and not age, so it can be any age. Remember that stage 1, it's all about lack of cooperation. And so all of your consequences need to be built on something that does not require cooperation from the child.
This is something that we emphasize a lot in our parent coaching. And we often get the response, well, like what? What kind of consequences don't require cooperation? So we've got you, okay? Consequences that don't require cooperation. You don't have to take a lot of notes on this section. Go get the PDF. We'll put this right in your inbox. Just go to the URL that's on the screen right now, drpauljenkins.com/consequences. You can remember that. The URL's on the screen. Go get this, and we'll walk you through how you can come up with consequences that don't require cooperation. And then print that sheet out, okay? Stick it on your fridge or something so that it'll be there as a constant reminder to you.
One of the big moments is when you realize that there are things that you do control that you provide for your child. And you need to know this so that when you are trying to set up a consequence that does not require cooperation, especially for an older child, then you want to know and be very clear about what it is that you have control over. So we're going to talk about a couple of those areas.
One of those things, you'll see this on the sheet that we're sending to your inbox, is access.
Access to what?
Okay, so look at the things that you control access to. You control access to space in your home. You control access to equipment like electronics or the television or the computer.
You also control access to things like the car, your vehicle, or their license.
This is particularly important for your older kids or teens because they don't own any of that stuff. Do you remember we were watching an episode of The Cosby Show years ago, and the son, in this case, was saying, well, why can't I have this? We're rich. And do you remember the response? Dr. Huxtable, played by Bill Cosby, said, what do you mean we're rich? You're poor. I'm rich.
Exactly.
And it was just an acknowledgement, I think, that we as the parents control access, and it's okay to do that. I have to throw in a little disclaimer, though.
Okay.
Because there's 5 freebies.
Right.
We teach this all the time in our coaching programs as well. You can't mess with these 5 things. You are required by law and morals and ethics to provide these 5 things to your minor children. Do you remember what they are, Vicki?
Air.
Air!
So we
Yes.
cannot deprive them of that.
Water.
Water, food, nutritious food.
Now we're up to 3. Shelter, which includes, in our society, appropriate clothing. And then the number one thing that you provide that you don't get to ever mess with has to do with your job as a parent. Love.
Right.
Okay? You don't mess with that. It's never contingent. So love, air, water, food, and shelter. Those are your 5 freebies. Everything else is up for grabs.
Okay, so get clear about what you have access to, and some of that we've just talked about, but be creative. Think about some more.
Now, another thing that you'll see on the list is that you control services. Like what? Well, you mentioned vehicles earlier,
Right.
Vicki, but for your younger kids, they're not driving the vehicles. They sure like to ride in them to go
get it.
different places.
Right. You are the one in charge of whether you're going to drive your car to that soccer practice or not.
Taxi services, laundry services, cook services. All right, you provide all of these things. Now remember, we're not going to mess with the 5 freebies.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you have to provide the same level of service that you've been providing in connection with those freebies. Do you follow? That's an important thing to cue in on. And then the last thing that you'll see there on the list has to do with goods, like toys or items that they appreciate having but they can't afford because they're poor.
You know, even something like a door to a bedroom, that could be a good as well. I know that you've removed a door before.
I have.
In our house.
Yeah, well, and in that particular instance, we had a child who was not cooperating with our expectation that you don't slam doors.
Right.
And if they're not cooperating, we have to come up with consequences that don't require cooperation. And I've realized in a flash of brilliance, apparently, that I control whether that door is even present on
Right.
the room that we were letting that child use.
And, you know, it can be something as simple as we've done many, many times. All the toys you want to keep, make sure they're picked up in 5 minutes. And those who didn't cooperate, they just lose those toys. They go in a bag and they go away. For at least, sometimes they've gone away for good. Sometimes they've gone away for a certain amount of time.
So notice the key here for all of these. We've talked about access, services, goods. The key here is that you control it. That's the most important thing, because if you control it, then you can enforce it.
Yeah, because you don't need their cooperation. Remember, they're not cooperating, so you have to find something that you control 100%.
Now, hopefully you found that helpful. Again, go get the download. Okay, we'll put that on a PDF form for you and put it right in your inbox. drpauljenkins.com/consequences. We've got you covered on this. I promised you 3 phrases. Let's get to those next. Vicki and I put together these phrases because sometimes you just don't know what to say in the moment.
You go blank.
And we've got you covered on that too. So here's 3 that you can just memorize and use them when it's appropriate.
Right. And the first one is, all I need to know is, are you willing to cooperate?
That simple. This puts your child on notice that you're tracking stage, not age.
Right.
See, the dividing line between stage 1 and stage 2 is cooperation. And usually you already know, okay, whether they're going to cooperate.
But it gives them a chance to think. I have seen kids before, when you ask that question, they're like, no. Well, maybe. Because they know that what's coming is something they don't get to have a say in.
And they want a say, trust me. They want to have more control. So you're putting them on notice. And this also reaffirms in your mind that you've got this, okay? You don't get to choose what stage your kids are on.
No.
You get to discern what stage your kids are on. And if they're on stage 1, you just need to be ready with those consequences that don't require cooperation. Yeah. That's why we went through that list with you. Here's the second phrase. Don't worry, I'll come up with something appropriate.
Now, there's two things I love about this. One, it gets the child thinking, but two, it buys you time, because I think one of the biggest problems we have with consequences is we think here's the misbehavior, miscooperation, whatever it is, and we think we have to respond absolutely in that very moment. And that's why sometimes coming up with these ideas of things is so hard. So memorize that phrase, give yourself a few minutes. You know, you're going to come up with something, and you will. There is nothing that says you have to react at that very moment.
And you don't have to know ahead of time what consequences you're going to use for any particular misbehavior.
And don't fall for that. It's not fair if you didn't tell me ahead of time. Yeah, it is. Because the rule was to cooperate.
Oh, I've had kids tell me that before. You didn't tell me this was going to happen. And I'm like, you're on to me. You got it. Yeah, all they need to decide is what stage they're on, okay? And if they're on stage 1, they're not cooperating with you. And so we're taking them out of the loop. What are you going to do about it? And that's when you can use this phrase. Don't worry, I'll come up with something appropriate. You're buying time. You're getting them to think. Remember to keep a calm voice, calm face, calm body. That's a powerful phrase.
The third phrase for you to memorize and practice saying so it can come out is, let me know if you change your mind. And I really like this. Now, for two reasons. It helps the child know that, oh, maybe I do still have some choice here. But the other thing is, I think we need to be really aware as parents that we need humility, because, I mean, how often do we get into this fight where we just want our way? Boy, they said that, and now I have to follow through. I have to, kind of continue the fight. Be willing that if they are willing to step back and say, you know what, I'm going to step into stage 2 and I'm going to cooperate with you. Be willing. Be humble enough to let them.
Well, that's less work for you, too.
It is.
So welcome that. I love the way that you put that, Vicki, because if we dig in our heels and we're like, nope, we're playing hardball now.
Right. Well, and we've said before that every interaction you have with your child, you are inviting them to either think or fight. And so this invites them to think rather than keep fighting with you.
And what do they have a choice about? See, if they refuse to cooperate, then you're going to come up with consequences that don't require cooperation. Hopefully you have some ideas about that now. But they always get to choose what stage they're on.
Right.
And when they're ready to move to stage 2, go with them. That's easier for you too, and it makes everything more peaceful and pleasant in your home.
You know, one caveat here, just realize that we're not saying that if a child chooses of their own will to go from stage 1 to 2 that you're dropping your consequences. It's just you're changing your consequence. You no longer have to come up with a consequence that does not require cooperation. You come up with a consequence that requires cooperation.
And this is self-reinforcing because what do kids want? They want
control. And really what we're trying to do is teach them that things go better for them when they take control of their emotions and actions and take responsibility for them.
That way they have some say in what's going to happen because they're cooperating. Right. So I'll just reinforce what you said there, Vicki. We're not dropping the consequences. We're simply shifting from stage 1 to stage 2. That's the part they get to change their mind about. So real quick recap of those 3 phrases. The first one, all I need to know is, will you cooperate with me?
The second is, don't worry, I'll come up with something.
And the third one, let me know if you change your mind. You should have some ideas now about how to come up with those appropriate consequences. Remember to get your download, drpauljenkins.com/consequences. We've got your back on this.